She's on. You can start.
She's on. Okay, great. Can I get a motion to come out of executive, please?
I make a motion to come out of executive.
I'll second.
Okay. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media, consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. Due to the public health emergency in the state of New Jersey, as declared in Executive Order 103, the board will be suspending its normal meeting procedures this evening and conducting a virtual meeting. Directions for accessing the virtual public meeting were posted on the district website. Before we move into roll call, I would like to welcome Mr. Larry Rosen to the board this evening. He was sworn in at the Alcott building on February 16th, and we are pleased to have him as our new board member and look forward to the contributions that he will be able to make to our board. So welcome, Larry.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, can we do roll call?
Pledge of Allegiance first.
Pledge first. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay.
Roll call. Mr. Baker. Ms. Cooper.
Here.
Mrs. Frenda.
Here.
Mrs. Lees.
Here.
Ms. Nathans.
Here.
Mr. Rosen.
Here.
Mrs. Tober.
Here.
Ms. Virtue.
Here.
Mrs. Rye.
Here.
Mrs. Santoro.
Here. Okay. Mrs. DeMarco, do I need to review the suspend policy for public meeting?
No, you don't need to read that, but I do have one correspondence.
Okay.
Email from Therese Taylor regarding project graduation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Dr. Dempsey, I think we're ready for the report of the superintendent.
Sounds good. Good evening, everybody. I would like to start us off with our middle school student representatives. This evening, I'm looking for Aiden and Justin. Aiden and Justin, are you here?
Yes.
All right, here they come. Good, good. You guys can kick us off.
I am just an 8th grader at BMS, and I'm on the Student Culture and Climate Committee. We have just recently merged our cohorts. Our school has been running a personal care drive for Nourish New Jersey in Morristown. This is where students donate personal care items to aid the homeless and the poor. These items list from toothbrushes, shampoo, soap, and other toiletries. For every one item a student donates, this equals 15 minutes of community service. Students on the Culture and Climate Committee are responsible for promoting this drive. For example, Victoria DeVito created the bathtub collection bins that are all throughout the school. Due to the weather conditions, our care drive was extended to 1 more week. On behalf of Nourish New Jersey, BMS students and several teachers and the school nurse, Ms. Ryan, created Rise and Shine breakfast bags, which are decorated bags filled with many food items for donations. They created up to 100 Rise and Shine breakfast bags. As many of you know, our BMS students are participating in activities that can win house points. In case you don't know what house points are, there are points that students can accumulate by winning various games.
Hello, everyone. I am Aiden Vinus, an 8th grader at BMS, and I am also on the Student Culture and Climate Committee. Here is a little summary of some of the things our committee has been working on. This year, to further promote school spirit, we have decided to put on a Battle of the Books, which was encouraged by the great experience students had at Bedwell. Everyone who participates in the battle is on a small team of around 4 students with a teacher to assist them. There are a variety of books for each grade level, and the idea is for each member of a team to read a few books, so no one is overwhelmed. Once they finish the book, the team practices trivia questions to prepare for a Family Feud style tournament at the end of the marking period. We have over 65% of our student body participating in this Battle of the Books. Students also had the opportunity to select the reward for winning the battle. In addition to this, we are also putting on a March Madness tournament for the students and the staff of BMS to compete in. A practice round involving bracketing your favorite candies is currently underway. To go along with the March Madness theme, students will also be able to participate in a free throw tournament in their gym classes. Next month, we will report on the house standings in all these activities. Thank you.
Thank you both. We're always so grateful for your time, and we love hearing about all the things that are happening at the middle school. Lucy Taylor, are you here too?
I'm here.
There she is. Lucy, can you fill us in on the high school?
Of course. Hi, I'm Lucy Taylor, a senior and the 2021 Board of Education student representative. I hope everyone is healthy and doing well. I definitely want to start off with acknowledging how some of the great recent changes have made our whole school experience feel a bit more normal. Winter sports have seen many successes, including senior nights, students competing in the ski race of champions, and many wins. With the past month of snowfall and contact tracing, students' seasons have not been easy, but each team has really been making the most of their situations and working hard. So congratulations to all winter sports. This past weekend, BHS Theater put on a spectacular all-virtual play, Let Me Down Easy. Congratulations to the whole cast for such a successful and unique performance. I hope in the coming months we can see more of BHS Theater. Our very own Bernards High School Crimson is second in the state for overall excellence in print journalism. The students and staff that made that possible should all be extremely proud of themselves, as that is a really impressive feat for our school and students alike. Harvard Model Congress took place this past weekend. It was around 20 hours, Friday to Sunday, over the computer, where students involved met students from around the country in a huge simulation Congress conference. I know students involved have been planning and prepping for this weekend for weeks, so congratulations to all who participated and made it such a successful weekend. Also this past weekend, Project Graduation dropped pizza kits off for seniors, fit with cheese, sauce, dough, and directions to make our own pizzas. The pizza was so good. On behalf of all the seniors, I want to thank all parents involved in helping create that for us. I've heard there's more to come in the next few weeks, and I'm very thankful for the effort being put into acknowledging seniors. We've had 4 days of combined cohort instruction. So far, it has been really, really nice seeing more familiar faces roam the halls, and it feels almost normal. I've really enjoyed going into school for the past couple days, as I feel now I have a consistent motivation to focus, learn, and get my work done. It's been hard with snow and contact tracing, but I really do hope as spring comes, we will begin to have a consistent routine of in-person instruction. That's all I have for today. Thank you, stay safe, and be well.
Thanks so much, Lucy. I think that we all are hoping for those same things. So fingers crossed all around. We're going to move from our students to our auditor. Warren, I see that you are here. Ginny, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add in
Yes.
introducing Warren.
I wanted to introduce Warren Korecki, who's a partner at our CPA firm, and he's going to update the board on our recent audit for 1920 school year.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you very much. Yeah, and one is the management report. They're both required to be filed on a yearly basis with the State Department of Education and the County Superintendent of Schools. If you had a chance to look at them, if you have any questions, I'll answer on them. But I like to go over the small report first. It's called the management report. This is strictly, required by the Department of Ed, the Division of Finance, because it's not just a financial audit, it's also a compliance audit. So there's in other words, they want to see if you comply with the administrative code and various New Jersey statutes, and also their audit manuals, because this is backed up by like a 300-page audit manual, and there's various different compliance requirements they want us to check. And in this report, there's like 10 general areas under financial planning, administrative procedures, purchasing, the cafeteria, student activities. And when we go in and check these items, we make sure they're supported by documents that are in the BA's office. And we did have one recommendation this year, and what's required is the recommendation just be read into the records. And it's it's on page 9 of the smaller report. It's under financial planning. And it just says that the district take measures to ensure that all eligible employees are enrolled in the pension system on a timely basis. And the reason we put that one in there, because if you don't register somebody in the pension system right away, you can accumulate substantial penalties that are I don't know if I've never seen them waived before. So you really have to pay for them. So you have to watch when somebody crosses over. And this was just basically an isolated incident. I think somebody went from a part-time to a full-time position, and they had to be enrolled into the pension system. But we think it's important enough, because when you start getting penalties, they accumulate very fast if you don't catch them. Okay, but that's the only recommendation that we had this year.
Warren, am I
everything else that we
correct in
did check
thinking
in the
that
VA's office.
am I correct in thinking that the recommendation dates back to 2017?
Yeah, it goes back a little bit. Yeah, because in other words, the person's not, they're not there. And I think when we had an exit conference, and somebody that went from part-time to full-time, then all of a sudden you had to register with with all the benefits, and that's what really happened with this. But you were forced to pay a penalty, and that's why we put it into the report. Okay, you have to be, you just have to be cognizant of what's going on with your employees, especially with the pension and the healthcare. I mean, you can get, if you're just in those two. Especially the Division of Pension, they're very fast to hit penalties, and the board has to pay for those. Okay, but it does go back a little bit. Okay, the CAFR report. This is actually your financial statements, and this is the financial reporting of it. This is developed from the records that are maintained in the BA's office, from the revenue reports, the bank reconciliations, the appropriation runs, the treasurer reports. Any other kind of revenue reports, and we take all that information and we compile it into a financial statement, so you can actually read and see what's going on. There's various presentations. There's district-wide. There's gap presentations, and there's fund statement presentations. And there's budgetary presentations, which I think is most important. There is a schedule in there called the C1 exhibits on 85 to 97. I mean, it's a detailed presentation. It shows the revenues, how you spent your funds by the different line items. There were no over expenditures. You did realize all your revenues. You did comply with all the rules and regulations that we did. So what you get is what we call an unqualified opinion. There's no exceptions to anything that's in the report, because anything that we did test was backed up by support documentations in the BA's office. You're in good financial shape. I mean, there's nothing to worry about. You have the same amount of surpluses last year, and which is a very good thing. And it's on a budgetary basis, which you want. There's a lot of information in there. If you're looking at it and you do have any questions, I wouldn't hesitate to either through the BA's office, or you can call my office directly, because there's not just financial, but there's a lot of statistical information, just things about the district as a whole. Okay. If there's any questions now on anything that we do or anything in the presentation, I'll be glad to answer those questions at this point in time.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Korecki? All right, we will move on. Thank you, Warren. Good to
Thank
see
you
you
very much.
again, and we appreciate your
Sure,
efforts.
sure. Good evening, everyone.
I want to take a minute before the principals step up to just frame this for the board and the public. This year, certainly, we have had a number of public presentations surrounding issues unique to schooling during a pandemic. In September, we had the Bernards Township Board of Health come to visit us. They talked to us about navigating the road back. In November, our Director of Guidance, Jamie Walker, spoke to the board and the public about promoting wellness during reopening. In December, Colleen gave us an update on COVID and contact tracing. And in January, we had Olga Edgerton and Susan Fisher here talking about math and language arts K-8 from a program overview and student data perspective. Tonight, I'm happy to present our district principals so they can talk about their work this year. We've had more than our fair share of challenges, but we have to acknowledge our successes. I appreciate what Lucy shared with us earlier. Certainly offering 5 days a week of in-person instruction for all hybrid students has been a goal of ours since September. And I'm happy to say that this objective was successfully accomplished this past month, in large part due to the efforts of our principals. I thank them all for their hard work over the last 12 long months and their willingness to come tonight to talk to you all. So without further ado, I'm going to let Dr. Nigel, Ms. Phelan, and Ms. Garofalo jump into it.
And if we could ask Jason to bring up our PowerPoint presentation, we can get started. My name is Amy Phelan. I am the principal at Bedwell Elementary School, and on behalf of myself and Lisa Garofalo, the middle school principal, and Scott Nigel, the high school principal, we'd like to thank the board and Dr. Dempsey for this opportunity to speak with you tonight. We're going to talk tonight about updates throughout the school year and an overview of the school year. But before we start with that, I'd like to take this opportunity from Scott, Lisa, and myself to thank our students, our staff members, and our administrative colleagues for their hard work, their perseverance, their flexibility in this most unusual school year. I'd also like to thank the families of our students, the families of our staff members, and the families of our administrative colleagues. So that support that they provide to all is critical in any year, but particularly in a year like this where the stressors are many. So taking that support and comfort from those of us, our loved ones, is something that we really appreciate. If we could go to the next slide. I'm going to start with talking about kind of our district reopening, kind of where we started over the summer. At the end of the last school year, 1920 school year, as soon as the students left for the summer, we began immediately planning for the school year that we find ourselves in now. Over the summer, we had many changing information from the New Jersey State Department of Education. We had guidance and input that was evolving from our local health agencies. We had input from our staff members, the information that needed to be shared from our parent community. We had the summer work of committee works at the administrative level. We had the Restart Committee work over the summer that helped us come to the plan that we opened up with in September. And if I could ask for the next slide. So district-wide, in our planning to reopen our schools that had been closed to in-person from March when we went out, we needed to develop a plan that brought our students back in person and prioritize the safety of everybody in our school buildings. So across the district, we started the school year with 3 cohorts. We split our student body across the 3 schools in cohorts of last names AK and LZ. And we started the school year with virtual Mondays for our entire student body across the district, where students were virtual and teachers were teaching totally virtually. On the cohort days, Tuesdays and Thursdays, our AK students were in person, while our LZ students were following along live streaming instruction from the classroom. And then on Wednesdays and Fridays, our LZ students were in person and our AK students were following along. So that program was the way that we started the school year. Our instructional day throughout this time period that we're talking about, largely marking period 1, had the live streaming, and then the afternoon time was instructional support for our students across the 3 schools. If I could have the next slide. So one of the things that we focused on from the beginning, Dr. Dempsey mentioned this earlier, was how can we prioritize safety, but look at how we can continue to increase in-person instruction. So at Bedwell, one of the first things that we were able to do on October 12th was we eliminated virtual Mondays. So we folded the Monday into the hybrid cohort schedule. So on one given week, AK students were in on Monday and then Tuesday and Thursday. And then the following week, the LZ students were in on Monday and then Wednesday and Friday. So one week, 2 days in person, and the next week, 3 days in person. Also on October 12th, we brought back our first group of special education students back to in-person 5 days a week. And as we increased our in-person instruction, we were really closely monitoring safety cases in terms of COVID, and making sure that as we looked at continuing to increase in-person instruction, that we were making sure that our students and staff members had a safe environment to come to school. The next group of students that we brought back 5 days a week was after the winter break. If you remember, we were to come back on Wednesday after New Year's, and then we ended up having two additional virtual days that week, and then the district reopened for in-person instruction on Monday, January 11th. And on that date, our kindergarten students came back 5 days a week, and our next group of special education students on that January 11th date came back 5 days a week. Throughout this whole time period, throughout marking periods 1 and 2 that I'm referencing here, we consulted with our school district physician. We were following the guidance of our local health agencies. We were working with our pandemic response team. We were working with staff members and parents and other administrators, so that we were considering all the factors that we needed to take into consideration to have this happen. So I am going to turn it over now to Lisa Garofalo to talk a little bit about the middle school.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Garofalo. I'm the middle school principal. And if we could proceed to the next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what, to piggyback on what Ms. Fallon said, BMS and BHS worked in tandem due to our scheduling and some shared staff, and we worked together to move into the next phase of our opening. So again, we were able to bring back those special education students who have special programming for 5 days a week on October 5th. And then as we grew into a comfort level of having our students in this all virtual setting, and our teachers really did a great job of getting that down pat, we were able to move away from those virtual Mondays. And that occurred on November 9th from the middle school, a week after that for the high school. After student dismissal, we had this afternoon opportunity, which Dr. Nigel is going to go into a little more in depth later on our presentation about instructional support and what that opportunity looked like for students provided by staff. But our afternoons are dedicated to instructional support time, and that also includes lab opportunities for high school students as well. And again, as you heard some of our students say on the middle school and high school call, it's been exciting this week to have the opportunity to merge both of those A to K and L to Z cohorts of students who've been coming in person and coming into that this week. So that's been terrific as well. Next slide. So the next part of the presentation, we're going to talk some about instruction for those parents who are on the call, and you may have the opportunity to walk by when you hear your students at home in virtual instruction. The classroom certainly looks different than it did in March, let alone a year ago prior to the pandemic. So if we could move to the next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about what some of those instructional methods are, and you can see the first bullet talks about novel method of instruction. I would say that our teachers have done an amazing job. That's from a preschool to all the way through to 12th grade of really working with these multiple groups. So teachers have become quite masterful at working with students that they have in person in front of them, as well as those students that they have on the screen. They are amazingly responsive to both groups. In early fall, I would say, we've been using Google Classroom, and Google Opportunity provided a feature for our teachers and your children, which we've made tremendous use of, and that's the amazing breakout room. Breakout rooms continue to allow teachers to facilitate group pairings, allow for presentations, and provide teachers with opportunities for private conferencing, and this is done throughout content areas and throughout the grades. I would say also that this provides an opportunity to facilitate discussion in the hybrid model. Teachers continue to check for understanding, and for those of us on the administrative team who pop into classrooms, both in person and virtually, we're amazed at what our teachers can do to check for understanding. That has certainly continued to develop. Assessment looks different for your learner as well this year. Teachers are able to collect individual data as well as take the temperature of the classroom through online surveys, check-ins, discussions, and then continue to check throughout for understanding, really engaging your child both in written and oral expression. I feel comfortable saying that our learners are learning in ways that they never have before, and we're able to hit both the introvert and the extrovert learner as well. Next slide, please. And I'm going to turn this portion over to Dr. Nigel to talk about the use of technology.
Thanks, Lisa. I appreciate it. And if you could go to the next slide, please, Jason. So as Lisa mentioned, completely novel way of instruction, new way. In order to do that, we can't use the same tools that we used in the past. And so our teachers really got innovative and creative and found all these different technologies, software packages or add-ons and came to us and said, here's things that we think will help us teach. And that was really helpful. And so, just Google Meet and Zoom alone, there was a learning curve with not just how to run it. I think we've all become pretty comfortable with that, but how to teach a class doing that, how to manage a chat, how to do breakout rooms, and how to do so without wasting time, because our teachers have a limited amount of time. They're trying to keep the transitions minimal, and they've become quite adept at that. But beyond that, teachers have to figure out how to do formative assessment, how to check for understanding, as Lisa just said, how to do summative assessment, how to give quizzes, tests, labs. And so as they came through this, they came upon new technology and are able to do a lot of those things, to not just do formative and summative assessment, but how to engage students, how to use video, how to use interactive features. And so a lot of these, without going through them, formative is actually used for both formative and summative assessment. Pear Deck is a tool that we're recently getting into more and more that allows Google Slides and PowerPoints to be more interactive and engaging. And some of those other things are more at the elementary level, like Brain Pop or iReady and Ready Mathematics, the FOSS-Web, but even Jamboard. And the list just keeps growing and growing as our teachers find ways to teach different content in engaging, meaningful ways that allow us to generate that really important formative feedback. So we're not just teaching to the students, they're not just telling the students, they're getting that feedback through the computer and through the classroom using this technology. And so it is, a lot of new things, but again, a lot of it is teacher driven because they're so determined to make this work and they're constantly reinventing their instruction. Next slide, please. But that doesn't come without challenges. The hybrid model is difficult, and while we've been doing it for a little while now, it's still, again, completely new for all of our staff, and they've really done quite a good job at all levels, balancing that attention to the in-person students and the all virtual learners. It's really a challenge. You want to make sure the people at home can hear and see, and they're following along while also teaching to a group of students who's live in person. Now with the combined cohorts, it's a little bit more natural because the split is a little bit more even, but again, it is still a challenge. It's also a challenge, you don't think about it, but to build relationships virtually. A lot of times those private conversations or those quick little, conversations in the hallway or students are leaving classroom, if they don't happen because the student is all virtual or they're hybrid and they're not in as much, it's hard to build those relationships. So teachers have been finding other ways to build those relationships, using breakout rooms, getting feedback through surveys like Google Forms, or even using instructional support, which I'll speak a little bit more in a minute, to connect one-on-one. Again, to come back to that student engagement, it is challenging to engage students through a virtual mechanism, especially at the elementary level. Ms. Phelan shared that with me, that supporting kids when they're not physically there is really quite difficult. And at different levels, you have different problems. At the middle or elementary school, they love their cameras. They love to see themselves. I have a couple elementary kids of my own, and they have no problem being on camera all day long. At the middle and the high school, it changes a little bit, right? They don't want to see themselves. They're more conscious of being on camera, and there's more fatigue of that awareness of themselves. And so it presents different challenges at different levels. The continuity of instruction, what I mean by that is, unfortunately at the high school, we had, we've been in and out a little bit because of different things, whether it be weather or cases or contact tracing, and that back and forth, whereas, our students and our staff are super flexible, it's not easy. And it breaks up that continuity and it just makes everything a little bit more challenging. At the high school specifically, academic integrity, it's always an issue. But again, it's much more challenging to monitor, what's going on when students are taking assessments virtually or at home. Teachers have adapted though. They've been flexible, changing the assignments, maybe going more toward open-ended or open notes, or doing more papers instead of, multiple choice assessments. So again, they're adapting as they go through this school year. And then last but not least, we have technical disruptions. Every once in a while, you'll get a blip in the internet. We'll send out alerts saying we're having some internet problems. One day Google wasn't working. You always think Google's going to work, and some days it doesn't. But again, I think everyone has been, especially the staff, have just been super flexible and again, just doing the best that they can. But taking all this, one day at a time, one step at a time, and saying, hey, I'm just giving it my best. There are things that are up against us, but we're working to, adapt and provide the best possible instruction that we can. Next slide, Jason. And just to speak to that instructional support, that's what it says on the bottom left corner of that slide. Teachers are doing it in a couple of different ways. Obviously, it's open for any student who has a question and wants to pop in with questions about assignments, concepts, or skill work. But teachers are also sending emails to students or reaching out to them saying, I'd like you to come at this specific time. And they're copying parents and saying, hey, I'm inviting your son or daughter, your student to attend this session. So we ask for your help. If you could just make sure that your students remember to attend. I know the afternoon gets a little bit busy. They might start doing another assignment or something else, but to make sure that when they're invited, that teacher had a reason that they invited your student to that. So making sure that they attend would be really helpful. At all levels, students are making up schoolwork, checking in, making up assessments, conducting assessments. Maybe they didn't get a chance to do an assessment during class, and so they're using that time in the afternoon to do that. At the high school, that's labs are also for the A and the honors are built into that time. And again, it's an opportunity for the teacher to be, without a mask, and the kid, because they're obviously virtual and they're the only person in the room, connecting with the kid and seeing their face and seeing that reaction. And for a kid to know this teacher still cares about me. I know it's a different year, but they're engaging with me in a different way. Okay, next we have building highlights. I'm going to kick it back to Amy, and we're going to go through just unique to our building, different things that we are focusing on.
And the next slide, please. So when we created our schedule at Bedwell, we looked on focusing what were the critical important pieces that we wanted to make sure that we were able to engage students in. So obviously at the elementary level, that social emotional piece is a critical piece. So that morning meeting time is a really important time to have teachers have the opportunity to build a classroom community for kids to engage with each other in non-academic ways, to have discussions, enjoy little things, be silly, share what's going on in their lives, and also to build that relationship between the kids who are totally virtual and for the kids that are in person in school. One of the things that we do during morning meeting, I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next one, but our character education morning announcements, but that's a piece of what happens at the elementary level. If you've never had the opportunity to be at Bedwell during morning announcements, it's always a good laugh and an interesting fact to be shared, and that those kinds of things are happening in morning meeting. And then in terms of the rest of the schedule, our focus on English language arts, our reading, writing workshop and word work, where students are working on phonic work, spelling work, and reading, engaging in reading workshop and with books that are at their just right level that students are choosing and book shopping, whether in person in the classroom or using an online reading database like Epic or Raz Kids, and then the writing workshop as well. Mathematics, we have a new math program this year, and it has a robust online piece that has been helpful for the work that we are doing in mathematics this year. And then on any given day, the students have science or social studies. And one of the things that we needed to look at for science and social studies this year was when we don't have students in every day, and how do you keep that continuity of a topic of a unit of study. So you will see things like this. You may see a unit of science where they're engaging in science, and then it switches to social studies. So that continuity that Scott talked a little bit about previously can be prioritized. The related arts, we have students engaging in all the related arts that they would have in a regular school year. Our art, technology, enrichment, library, music, physical education, and Spanish. One of the things we did to try and lessen the movement within the school, the related arts teachers are going to go to the homeroom teacher and teach directly in the homeroom from classroom to classroom, rather than having the children travel through the building for those classes. And all the support services that we offer to students who we can avail themselves of that. We have literacy support, math support, English as a second language. We have our whole class enrichment program. Mrs. Pike does counseling, and then if students are eligible for services like speech, OT, and PT, these services are happening both in person and virtually, and for some students that they may be totally virtually if the student is a virtual only, participating as a virtual only student. And then in our afternoon instructional support block time, Scott talked about the different ways in which instructional support can happen. Teachers can extend an open invitation. They can have scheduled small groups where they're inviting particular kids. Kids can come in and get extra help in a content area. And then we also are using that time is to allow the related arts teachers to do a little extension in the afternoon of what they had taught during the day. So we're calling them enrichment clusters. So on a given day, if your child had art that day, they could go to the enrichment cluster that Mr. McCarron had during that block of instructional support time. And it's just gives students another opportunity to engage things that they might find really interesting. And then it gives some organization to that afternoon time. If I could have the next slide. Obviously, we're really focused on trying to do all the things that make an elementary school fun and special and engaging students and having them enjoy those things. So one of the things I mentioned just a little bit before was our morning announcements and our character ed announcements. And Mrs. Pike masterfully creates using our mascot, Character Ed, who's an eagle. For those of you who've never met Character Ed, I have one with me right here. That's Baby Ed. She does videos every day, and we found an app last year when we were closed in the spring where the Baby Ed or Character Ed can actually speak and do a video. So those morning announcements, Mrs. Pike makes available to the homeroom classes and all of the classes, and the teachers show them as part of the morning meeting activity. And they are funny and interesting and informative, and it's just can be a historical topic, a science topic, something silly, an event that's going on in the world, event that's going on in the school. It's another way that we can try and lift the spirits of our students. We've had some character education virtual concerts. Mr. Thurlow has done some wonderful work around, he writes his own songs and goes into classrooms and does some concerts, and I've enjoyed them myself, and I know the students and the staff members do as well. These are just some examples of some of the things that we've done across the year. These are certainly not all of them, but helping kids kind of take themselves out of themselves and think of ways that they can have control and they can help others, be kind to others. We've done something called the Great Kindness Challenge. Do something to make someone laugh, compliment someone, thank a volunteer, make a joke to make someone laugh. It's just, it's another way that we can have students see the control that they have to help others and make others feel good. We're continue with our spirit days, our monthly spirit days, and then we have sometimes spirit weeks depending on an event that is going on, upcoming. For example, in the spring, we do Earth Week, and there are kind of spirit activities and days every day of that week. One of the things we know about elementary students, that movement is a critical piece of that we want our students to avail themselves of, and then helps them with attention and focus for the academic work that they're doing. So, teachers incorporate movement breaks, dance breaks, yoga breaks, breathing, meditation, even our snack time when we're going outside. That has turned into a really nice opportunity, especially in this year where the social interactions are limited in ways that they haven't been in the past, is to have that time to move and engage and interact in different ways. Bedwell's Home and School Association is phenomenal. They have been so supportive of our staff throughout the year in doing things like breakfast and lunch, and just recognizing the hard work that Bedwell staff is engaged in. And they also have been really helpful in trying to create these activities and events for our students. So we've had virtual classroom parties that our HSA room parents have coordinated and hosted in the homeroom classrooms. They hosted a snowman building contest, and we had some incredible creations of our students and staff members that they, with all the snow that we have, we put it to good use at Bedwell. We have an event happening tomorrow night called Brighten the Night, and there are going to be some music and yoga and different activities. And then at the end of the night, students and families are creating little lanterns that they're going to go out and light and put outside to kind of brighten the night and let everyone know you're a member of the Bedwell School community. We have some upcoming virtual assemblies. Story Pirates is an assembly that has been really popular and engaging for our students, where the group takes ideas that students bring to the table and then do an assembly based on those ideas and stories. And I was just working with Mrs. Friedman today about scheduling when that is coming to Bedwell in the spring. So those are just some examples of what we're doing to try to engage students and families at Bedwell. If I could have the next slide. So currently where we are right now, and looking beyond, on the slide where I talked about January 11th when kindergartners came back 5 days a week, I forgot to mention that we brought back another group of special education students 5 days a week at that same time. And then most recently, the week of February 1st, we were able to bring back our last group of special education students into 5 days a week at Bedwell. And then just on Monday, we were able to go to 5 days a week for our grades 1 through 4 students. So across our grade levels, we have students in 5 days a week. And when I say the energy in the building, the last couple days of going in and saying hello and seeing full classrooms and the kids in the halls leaving and coming from the buses and car rider line, and it feels like Bedwell again. And that's really nice to have that kind of energy. Now, I know in the classrooms, some conversations we've had with teachers, it's kind of like, oh, it's almost like the beginning of the year again. We have to kind of those procedures in terms of having a whole class of kids in a way that we haven't all year. That work is going on too. So I thank the teachers for the work that they're doing with helping kids be successful as we are back 5 days a week. So we are going to continue to monitor as we increase, as I said before, as we increase the in-person and monitor and continue to look for how we can move forward for the 4th marking period. And our hope is that we will continue to move in the direction that we have been going all year. And I would now like to let Lisa speak about middle school focus.
Next slide, please, Jason. Thank you, Amy. At BMS, and I know at last month's board meeting, both Dr. Edgerton and Mrs. Fisher spent some considerable time diving deep, talking about the things that are going on with literacy and mathematics. And I want to say that we continue to be benefiting from the amount of professional development that we're able to provide for our teachers. In many cases, that's teacher-driven PD, and then teachers turn around, take that, and it benefits your children. So while we definitely have been doing that using our partnership with TC, as Dr. Edgerton talked about last month, all of the changes regarding iReady and the data collection that we're able to do in mathematics, we had an opportunity this year, and you may have heard your children mention CAMI. It was an extension program that teachers came to us as building administrators and said this would be something that we think could definitely enhance and benefit what's going on in the virtual learning environment. We were able to work together as a team and turn around, provide that service to our teachers to use with students this year and provide district level PD. So I think you also get the sense from the three of us speaking on this that while I'm speaking about what's going on at BMS and we're each speaking about our buildings, we do a lot of collective working together, and that's certainly to the benefit of your children as well as our shared staffs. It's hard to follow Aiden and Justin because they did such a great job earlier, but they spoke a lot about what that community focus is at BMS and how can community be part of instruction very easily. There's our teachers, Justin and Aiden both spoke about the 65% of students who are involved in Battle of the Books. That continues to be an opportunity for comprehension, for extension of learning, and our teachers who do that in the afternoons. That's another way of instructional support, but it's a fun thing, and it's students getting together, both academics and merging social and emotional. Again, and just to talk about using, teachers are masterful at this. They're differentiating and they're meeting the needs in the small groups using those things that Dr. Nigel talked about, using technology and our Google Classrooms. Next slide, please. It doesn't seem that long ago, but it really was, that I was in person at a board meeting, having the opportunity to talk about Dr. Dempsey, as the former principal of the middle school, was able to secure a grant where we had a partnership with St. Elizabeth's University and the United Way, and that was to enhance the school culture and climate. I can't say, for those of you who are parents of middle school students, you know the importance of the words Duke, Princeton, Penn State, and Rutgers in our building, and those culture and climate committees, both the teacher committee and the student-led committee, continue to meet, and those really, it really brings that feeling of close togetherness at the middle school. Justin and Aiden spoke about the challenge that we have. We've had tremendous community service activities to talk about food insecurities to help our extended community. But so much of what we talk about is when we have involved, we know this as adults, but when students get involved in doing for the good of others, it makes you feel good about yourself. Our teachers have been able to run the clubs you see on the screen virtually in the afternoons after instructional support. And we look forward to the spring. While we weren't able to host winter sports, we certainly will be able to host spring sports. And Ms. Weltler has a pretty funny play planned for our 8th graders to do in the spring as well. So we continue to look ahead and we enjoy what we have here with our middle school community. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Nigel. Oh, maybe I'm not. Next slide. I am going to talk about BMS next steps first, sorry. Again, as you heard our students say earlier, we had the opportunity, we started off this Monday with a combined cohort. And just to echo what Ms. Fallon said on the call, it was a great feeling to have those students, more students in the building. And again, through a team approach, we will continue to talk about what that 4th marking period will look like. Before I do turn it over to Dr. Nigel, I want to say part of our Culture and Climate Initiative was when we talk about all stakeholders, and we talked about teachers and administrators and all of our staff, but again, our amazing parent group, our HSA, does tremendous things and allows us to continue to do tremendous things. So thank you very much. Dr. Nigel, now it's really your slide.
Jason, if you go to the next slide, great. And again, similar to the middle school and elementary school, but again, prioritize for the high school. We're looking at the curricular content for the different content areas that our teachers have to go through, and they have to make some choices about what content they might need to go a little more quickly, perhaps skip or build in different ways, and they're working with their supervisors to do so. I mentioned earlier, and I don't need to go over again, finding new ways to engage students, how to facilitate discussion in a virtual hybrid environment. That's quite challenging. So we're exploring things like using the chat better, because students don't necessarily speak up as much as they would in person if they're virtual. One thing that's really important that we've had a lot of conversations at the building and the department level is a flexible grading system. We still want teachers to assess student proficiency, but we've asked them to be flexible in that approach. Encourage redos, retakes, reducing late penalties, working with students and saying, let's prioritize this work. Show me different ways that you understand the content, because it's not a normal year. We can't approach it. Again, we've had a lot of the good instruction. We've improved a lot from the spring, but we can't just say, everything is normal. We're going to, treat grades like we did in the past. We want to make sure that we're giving students ample opportunities to demonstrate their proficiency throughout the year. And that would appear both in summative assessment, but also with that formative feedback that we've used, and I spoke to earlier with the technology, how to give them feedback so they can improve their work. And then again, you have that individualized feedback through virtual instructional support. Jason, next slide, please. And this slide I'm really proud of because I think for what we've been through, Mr. Hoppy is famous for saying, I'm trying to run an interscholastic sports program in a pandemic. And the fact that we had a successful fall season and, our winter season is coming to a close, the first part of the winter season, the fact that we've had that, I know how much sports means to a lot of our students and to our coaches. And to be able to do that is really, I have to thank Mike and all his hard work, and Dr. Dempsey and Ms. Butler. That was no easy task. And to get some parents in the stadium to see their kids playing in the fall, and then now inside, it's really, that is just so good to see. So I'm very proud of the work that the athletic department has done. Just this past weekend, we had the fall play. Lucy spoke to it earlier. It was quite interesting to see a virtual fall play. We had a virtual winter concert, the band and the orchestra, Harvard Model Congress, Lucy spoke to as well. Just to see these activities pivot to a virtual environment. I know it's not the same, and I know it's not normal, but it's so good that it wasn't canceled, that we had some type of opportunity. Our Crimson, as Lucy spoke to, they're thriving online. They've, we've had a couple of students, Matt Lesnick and Shane Rich, are doing a podcast. They had me as a guest, and they showed me how good they were and how bad I was at that. But, they're doing some really innovative things. They're on Twitter. They've changed the way in which they do it. And they're saying, okay, we can't do it the normal way. Let's go online and let's do some different types of articles. And I think it's really been beneficial for them. Yearbook, same thing. Can't do it the same way. They've been flexible and taken a different approach. So to have that yearbook and to have that Crimson, to have those things that have made, been the hallmark of Bernard's High School for so long, and we go through this year, but to still have them as student activities is tremendous. And I know the Photo Club is still planning to have a virtual photo show. The Key Club, they've planned some events where they're having gatherings for students and trying to get students together after school. Again, it's just so good to see our advisors and our student leaders advocating and finding creative ways to do things that they've done in the past. And we still have volunteer clubs. Our Bernard's Club is meeting online. They're a volunteer club. We have 2 new clubs that came up this year. I have 2 new proposed that I'm waiting to get to a student leader group. The Girl Up Club just got approved, and the Investment Club, they got approved right after the recent stock market the situation went through. So they're excited to get going and to kind of explore the investment side. So again, and then Ms. Snyder's typing in the chat, the craft club and book club. So these are not all inclusive. There's so many different things that are going on at the high school. And I'm just really proud of the work our students and staff have done with regard to co-curriculars and athletics. Next slide, please. Not much to add to the middle and the elementary school. We combined last week. And again, with the weather and a little bit of contact tracing, it was a little bumpy, but as Lucy said, it's good to have more people in the building, have it be more normal than it was, and more students in a classroom. So we're excited at continuing that, and we'll continue to look at what we can do through instructional support. Students who are struggling, who may need some boost in their grades, specifically if we have seniors who are struggling, we really want to make sure that we're working with them to get to graduation. And then we'll reassess like we've done all year, and take a look at what the rules are, what we have in terms of the advice that's given to us from outside agencies, and then what types of requests we get from students in terms of where they want to be. Do they want to be all virtual, or do they want to be in person for marking period 4? Next slide. And this is the last one, and I appreciate all of your patience because we have a lot to talk about. There's a lot of good things. I know there's people, it's a tough time right now, but there's a lot of good things going on in our schools. And we'll continue to reach out to you with our letters, not just our letters notifying you of positive cases. I know you're tired of hearing from me about that, but also surveys to see, what if we do this in the next marking period, what will your plans be? So look out for that shortly for marking period 4. I know it's right around the corner. We're at progress reports right now, and the marking period is going to quickly come to a close. So please start to think about that. Look out for an email from us. Our pandemic response teams continue to meet regularly to discuss what we're doing, to reassess, to look at it from multiple perspectives. We have parents, teachers, counselors, administrators, a lot of different folks on that response team. And so we continue to assess what we're doing and see if we can do it better. We're regularly meeting with Dr. Agathis, Department of Health, having conversations to make sure that we have the most up-to-date recommendations and guidance so we can keep our students and staff safe. We'll continue to work to expand in-person instruction. I think we've shown through this presentation that that's been our goal throughout the year, and we continue to work hard to do that safely and to communicate with the school community. It's a challenge, but it's something that we find to be very important and we'll continue to do. And again, just something that Lucy spoke about earlier, and specifically at the high school, we're really going to focus on senior, at least the high school senior events, the senior love events. The Project Graduation folks have been outstanding. I've had several meetings with them about things they're doing for seniors. They're dropping off pizza. They got a surprise next week. They got a surprise the week after. And then we're going to try to get as many senior events in. Who knows what they'll look like, because we have to see what the capacity limits are and what we can do. But we're planning to send them out as best we can. And I know that Lisa and Amy are doing the same thing and working with their HSA and their parents to start those conversations about how we take this group who are leaving our schools and celebrate them in the best way we can, and the safest way we can. And even it's not too soon for me to start looking at graduation and saying, okay, if we have this, if we have that, start those conversations with students and parents. And I've already really started that. And I plan to communicate with parents about that soon, because I know it's a priority. I know how important it is. And I want you to know it's something that I've taken some time already and I continue to think about. Because it is a priority for us. So I thank you for all of your support with that regard. And the next slide is just us saying thank you. And it's a good way to end it. We really appreciate your support. We know it hasn't been easy, and we know sometimes you're not happy to hear from us at 8 o'clock at night when we're calling you with bad news. And so we appreciate you working with us and supporting our schools during this year and these challenging times.
Amy and Lisa and Scott, I can't thank you enough. I think it's so important for you to share directly with the board and the public. I know that you have been engaged in a year that we'll look back on, perhaps not fondly, but you do such a better job than I could of giving the details of your work, and I'm grateful to you for being willing this evening. I didn't know if the Board of Education had any questions for the principals before they go off into the sunset, metaphorically.
Hi, it's Sam. I just wanted to thank you all for the presentation. It was phenomenal. Obviously, a lot of work went into it, and you did a great job of elucidating, illuminating a lot of information. Dr. Nickel, you touched on a couple of times, the continuity of instruction, the contact tracing. And I know relatively recently there was an update from the state regarding contact tracing, sussed out by our boards of health, and then kind of shared with the district and evaluated. I was wondering if there was any way you could illuminate the evolution of that process and how it's going to continue to evolve in terms of changes that are made based on that guidance and such.
And Colleen can support that answer
Yes.
too. So
Thank you.
I'll leave that to the two.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. And Colleen, feel free to jump in because Colleen, every time we get a report, it's Ann Connor at the high school, Colleen and I having these conversations. But earlier in the year, the guidance was to be more cautious, and we were looking at classrooms and, larger spaces. And then more recently, we got some guidance to say that we could be a little bit more specific in how we do it. We're still saying that they're still saying within 6 feet. The definition of close contact hasn't really changed other than the continuous, 15 minutes over a period of 24 hours. And so we're looking at now seating charts in specific classrooms. And it's been a little bit of a challenge. Amy referenced it earlier, combining the cohorts and saying, okay, this is different. Like we, for a little while we had a couple kids, 2 or 3 kids in a class, and now we're looking more at 12 or 13. And so we're getting through classrooms. We even did that today, looking at what classrooms look like, how far can we get them apart? Can we get them beyond 6 feet? Most of them are around 6 feet. So then we look at, okay, 5 feet, 9 inches, so we're trying to reduce the number of close contacts that we have. I feel that, and again, Dr. Gattis, we ran this by her before we combined the cohorts. I feel that the students coming to the high school are safe when they're in classrooms. They're spread out enough with the masks and the way they're situated facing the same direction. It abides by state rules, and I feel it's safe. I would never put students in a situation that I didn't feel was safe. That being said, if they're 5 feet, 9 inches, by definition, I have to close contact or quarantine them. That being said, we're not doing it at 6 feet and beyond. So the students across the classroom aren't getting quarantined, but the students who are sitting directly behind or directly to the side, they are getting close contact. So we had, quite a few last week, but again, I can say that we are quarantining far less students. The last one that I did on, I don't even know what day it is. It's Wednesday. I did it on Monday. I think it was a total of 6 students and no teachers. That would never happen earlier in the year. I apologize if that answer was too long or drawn out, but that's...
No, and one of the things I just wanted to add to that, Sam, that Scott and I were talking about earlier today was that in combining these cohorts, there was a little bit of a time lag in that sometimes you're doing this contact tracing after hours, and seating charts had to be combined and updated. And did you necessarily have access to updated combined seating charts when you were doing this work, not necessarily during what we'll call normal business hours? And so that could have had some impact as well. Colleen, did you have anything to add to that?
It's interesting because I don't think at the beginning of this year, any of us would have had a real understanding of what the role contact tracing would play in our day-to-day lives has been. But the last year, I think we can all tell, has been a very unusual year. When you think about last year at this time, and we talk also about how the guidance that we get changes, it evolves as the science evolves. This time last year, no one was even telling us we needed to wear masks. I mean, that seems impossible for us to even fathom right now, but that's where we were at this time last year. We are updated. I think a lot of times people will say things about the CDC. Well, the CDC says, and the CDC gives us lots of great information for our everyday lives. It's not necessarily the information that we as a school go by. Sometimes also we'll hear from people and they'll say, well, in a hospital, a health worker does this, and the rules that we follow with regard to contact tracing are very different than healthcare workers follow. So we're getting our information. The New Jersey Department of Health gets information from the CDC, but then they look at it and see what they feel is wise for New Jersey. They then pass that on to our local departments of health, which really then have a really good information and have their finger on the pulse of our local district. And then they're the ones who are giving us the guidance and interpreting the New Jersey Department of Health information. So, the information changes. We keep really current. We speak with them all of the time. I think Dr. Nigel makes a really good point in that we have, our practice has evolved and will probably continue to evolve. Our mission is to keep everyone safe. Contact tracing is a strategy employed to interrupt the transmission of a communicable disease. When you think of the fact that schools are seeing low transmission, part of that is because contact tracing works. So, we want to keep kids in school. We want to keep our kids and our staff healthy, and we'll keep listening to the science and doing all that we can. I have to also, shout out to the administrators and the nurses who oftentimes, like, I don't know why this is, but it seems like we oftentimes get a phone call on a Sunday about 8 o'clock about a case, and people are still answering their phones when we call them. So I appreciate that, and I thank everyone for everything that they're doing. Does that answer your question, Sam?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for the clarity. I know that it has been kind of a stream of changing and updated information, and I appreciate the work. Thank you.
Anybody else from the board have any questions for the principals?
I don't have a question. I just, on behalf of the board, want to thank all of you for being here this evening, but really for all the work that you have been doing throughout this pandemic. And I mean, the presentations that you gave and the way that our buildings have progressed through this is just such a demonstration of your commitment to the school district and our students and staff. So, on behalf of the board, I just want to thank you all and appreciate your time this evening. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, principals. We appreciate it. And we're grateful. Onward and upward, right? Jamie Leese, I think that you're going into the next section of this for us. Do I have that right?
That's correct. We have time now to recognize some of our retirees, and we have two this evening. And the first one is Andrea Kostelak. So the Somerset Hills Board of Education would like to recognize Andrea Kostelak for her distinguished service to our school district. Andrea began employment in our district on September 1st of 1999 and taught special ed at Bedwell. Specific courses and/or responsibilities included resource room and inclusion. Andrea also participated in extracurriculars, including the 4th grade talent show staff band. We sincerely appreciate and applaud Andrea Kostelak's service to our district and wish her well in retirement. Pat Rye. Pat?
There we go. You would think that as a teacher, I would remember to unmute a little bit more easily. Anyway, I'd like to speak this evening and the board would like to recognize Marianne Parsiak for her distinguished service to our school district. Ms. Parsiak began employment in our district on September 1st, 2007 as a special education paraprofessional at Marion T. Bedwell School. Specific courses include serving as a class as well as a one-to-one paraprofessional. We sincerely appreciate and applaud Ms. Parsiak's service to our district and wish her well in her retirement.
Perfect. I thank you both. I certainly wish Andrea and Marianne the best in their upcoming retirements. And I think that just about concludes the report of the superintendent.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dempsey. Public comments for actionable agenda items. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any actionable agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels that there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public comments will be limited to 30 minutes. If you would like to speak, please type your name in the chat and I will call on you. Thank you for your input. Okay, there does not seem to be any public comments at this time, so we can move to approval of minutes. Can I get a motion, please, to approve minutes?
So
Make a
moved.
motion to approve the minutes.
I second, Janice.
Okay, we'll do roll call. Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mr. Rosen,
Yes.
Mrs. Tilber,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
and Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All right, Bob, it looks like you have landed safely. So if you want to start with
Yes,
finance, please.
I will go ahead. The Finance Committee met last Wednesday, the February the 17th, for about 70 minutes, and everybody was in attendance, along with Dr. Dempsey, Mrs. Butler, and Mrs. DeMarco. Talked about 5 or 6 items. The first item we talked about was the audit that we all received our booklets, and we had a short presentation from the partners from the audit company. And you'll see on the agenda, there's the recommendation we have to approve to make sure that our pension for employees is done on time. And I would recommend for anybody who's got the books to look through them. They're quite boring, long, things like that, but there's a lot of good statistical charts in there about different towns, things like that. So I'd recommend it. It's a good resource. I would go to it occasionally. If you want to go to sleep some night, I'd recommend it. Next time we talked about was the budget, which we're going to be giving a public presentation next board meeting on the 17th of March. But between January and February, Mrs. DeMarco and Dr. Dempsey and other administrators reviewed the budget. We were not within the 2% target we were looking for. And since then, we've closed the gap down and we're right at the 2% point. And if you heard the governor's budget presentation yesterday, he's going to give the schools $578 million. So we have no idea of that $500 million plus dollars, how much we could get. We could get nothing, or we could get, maybe $100,000. I don't know. We have no idea. But that's going to be what tomorrow. Yes, yeah, they're going to make the announcement because they have to chop up the $578 million between the schools. So, so we're in good shape, and we'll give the public a lot more details about all the line items. But we're going to be at the 2% target for tax increase, probably right there. The next item we talked about a GASB rule, which is an accounting rule, 84. And what that is, we have to make sure all our funds that are in the school family go through our accounting and software management things. And so right now our student activity fees and our athletic fees do not go through that. And there's a lot of good software that we can use to get them into it. It's going to take some training on administrators and teachers to use that. We have to get that started by July. It's the law. We cannot not do it. So Mrs. DeMarco is looking for software packages that are easy to use, can help staff and administrators keep track of money coming in and money going out. Okay, it's a new thing. Next item we talked about the CARES relief package that was passed in December, which is people got their stimulus checks. Well, in that package, the schools are getting like $1.9 billion across the country, and we can use it for anything that's COVID related. We have to give remedial help to kids this coming year, to buy more equipment, more improve air handling items. And we have to spend it between January of this year and September of 2023. But we don't know how much money we can apply for. So we should know that shortly. We'll get back to you all next month about what those grants will be. But if you take 1.9 billion and divide it by every school in the nation, I think it's going to be a nice chunk of money coming to each school. And the last item we talked about was our Department of Education, the federal department does a census based on how many families are in the poverty range in every school district. And our poverty range went down to 2.9, which didn't seem right. So Mrs. DeMarco looked at the last few years and it didn't make sense why it went down. But I think there's a lot of reason for that. During the pandemic, the way people were keeping track of a lot of different things, like income tax returns, a lot of it's based on income tax returns and other self-reporting. It's down. It's not down a lot, but it still concerns us because our Title I monies are based on that number. So we have to investigate that to see if we can get that changed, and we'll report more about that next month. I think that's the bulk of our committee meeting, and I like to move action items 1 through 13. There's a couple on the addendum. Do I have a second on those?
Second, Bob, it's Kathy.
Okay. Any questions on any of that stuff? And
Bob, I have
yes,
a question. What was our poverty level in previous years?
it was up in the 3s. Okay. I mean, it's not, it's like 10 students less. But that because the income tax is what the government uses a lot. That's the only real number they have. So if people aren't reporting, plus there's a lot of people who do not file income tax too. So they have to investigate other ways for unemployment. It's not a simple calculation. A lot of it is somewhat they have to estimate things. So, but the federal poverty level for a family of one, which wouldn't count in our school system, but let's say you would be up like a family of 2, you'd be up in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. And there's a table for each dependent added, the poverty number climbs, and they can go as high as like $70,000 or $80,000 if you have 8 children. Excuse me. So Mrs. DeMarco, did you find out anything else about that since we met?
No, it's even the Department of Ed's guidance is that we're comparing apples to oranges because we're so used to looking at our, say, free and reduced lunch account as a basis, because that's the only kind of data we have internally for Title I funding. But they were saying that this calculation takes much more other factors into consideration. So it's hard to compare the two. So it's like, you know, you're comparing apples to oranges. And so
Nicole, that was one of the reasons, sorry to interrupt you, Ginny, that we questioned this, because when we got the figure, we were given a window of time to basically refute it, but we couldn't figure out what we should be looking at to do that. I asked Ginny and Colleen to reach out to the census. They spoke to people there, and then Ginny and I spoke to the county business administrator to say, where is this historical data that we can look at to determine whether this is accurate or seems suspect. But everybody seems to say we're not necessarily sure.
Yeah, I think if you go back, if you look at our free and reduced lunch program, we're more in the 12 to 13% of our population, where this number is like down around 3%. But you can't compare them because the free and reduced one is people self-report that, you know, so that includes everybody. But a lot of the income tax data, there's people who do not file income tax, or people they still haven't filed for 2019. I met with somebody today. I was doing a 2019 tax for somebody who couldn't do it last year because of the pandemic. So the data is flawed, but we're kind of stuck with it, I guess. The best answer, you know.
the county told us that if there was a drastic change from previous years for this statistical information, we could appeal, but it's a slight decrease. It's not a dramatic change. So we sent the information to the county, and if they have some kind of more analysis that they could do, then they'll help us out. But for now, there's really nothing for us to appeal for.
Right. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, let's do a roll call on the third picture.
I'm sorry to interrupt. One thing I think we need to do, Mrs. DeMarco, I think we need to modify the date for the Minuteman barbecue dinner.
Yes, I had that revision to read in for number 5. Item A, the date should read March 6, 2021, instead of the February 27th.
March 6, 2021. Okay, so we're revising 5A.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Now
We'll
take
do a
roll
roll.
call.
Sure.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mr. Rosen,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
and Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Bob. Moving on to facilities and operation.
Good evening. Facilities and operations met on the 17th of February last week at 4 o'clock, and our meeting lasted approximately 48 minutes. The board members attending were Mr. Baker, Ms. DeRosen, Ms. Santoro, Mrs. Tober, and myself. Administrators, Dr. Dempsey, Ms. Butler, Ms. DeMarco, and Ms. Conglin. I hope I pronounced that correctly. The first thing we discussed was BHS planned events, which made us all very excited. We talked about graduation, which will happen on June 17th at 11 o'clock in the morning, and the senior class last blast, which will happen later on that evening. Senior prom, yay, will happen on June 3rd, 2021. And we did discuss Tricky Tray, which excited some of us a lot, for March 19th. And that is planned for an outdoor activity. Unfortunately, there will be no junior prom this year, but other senior class events are pending in terms of the outcomes of parents and student interest surveys, and those surveys haven't been conducted yet. We continue to talk about the BHS parking lot rentals. We were updated by Ms. DeMarco about the tour of Bernardsville bicycle race, which has been changed now because of COVID restrictions to Saturday, September 4th. Assured by the people who are doing the race that it will be fully staffed by the bike race committee and that no work need be done on the part of us, save for the rental of the parking lot. Mr. Hoppy was asked about potential athletic conflicts on that date, but we're really a little bit too far out now to know exactly what's going on. So we're still pushing this one into the future. You will hear about it later. Councilman Donahue and Hammond, who are the town council liaisons for the race, have requested the use of the parking lot for a proposed town-wide function that will happen later on the evening of September 4th, but nothing really in terms of that is firm. So discussions will be ongoing. Then Dr. Dempsey talked to us about PPAC Gladstone transportation and that it is being studied. There's going to be a study to ascertain the continued feasibility of train versus bus transportation for students. And the administration told us that they will also look into potential hazardous walking routes for students who take the train. Dr. Dempsey also spoke to us of her ongoing, and all administrators at Bedwell, at the middle school, at the high school, ongoing efforts to ascertain the residency status of students attending schools in our district. She wanted us to know that this work is being conducted to assure compliance with New Jersey state law and statute codes. Dr. Dempsey also said that when reports are made to the administration regarding residency challenges, the reports are, and I will quote her, looked into with fidelity. So that was a great comfort to everybody on the committee. In terms of important information for you to know, the generator at Bedwell is now, for all intents and purposes, up and running and complete. There are some minor odds and ends still to be dealt with. The project was budgeted at $275,000 and it came in at $204,607. So that was a nice savings of $70,393,000, and it will be remitted. Those monies will be remitted back into the capital improvement budget. And Ms. DeMarco had to talk to us about having to look into whether or not the State Department of Education had to approve our ongoing LED light upgrade, and it does not have anything to do with us. So the work is ongoing. The administration will conduct that transportation analysis. We'll be talking about BHS events. We'll be talking about the tour of Bernardsville in future meetings. And thank you very much. Are there any questions or discussion on anything I said?
I just want to jump in and clarify one thing on the agenda for number 2 under facilities. We have to report to the state twice a year data regarding student safety. It used to be called the Violence and Vandalism Report. For the first reporting period of this year, we had 3 incidents that were categorized as other incidents leading to removal. Typically, these have to do with suspensions, and we had 2 incidents that were alleged as harassment, intimidation, and bullying. So I just wanted the board to have that data before they voted.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dempsey. Any other discussion? I would like to move action items 1 through 2. Is there a second?
I
Mrs.
second.
Lees?
Aye.
Okay, Mrs. DeMarco, can we take a roll call, please?
Yes. Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mr. Rosen,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
and Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you, Pat. Moving on to curriculum.
Hi, everyone. The curriculum committee met on February 16th for just over 2 hours. All committee members were in attendance, and we were joined by Dr. Dempsey, Ms. Butler, Ms. Phelan, Ms. Garofalo, Dr. Nigel, Dr. Edgerton, and Ms. Coughlin. Our meeting began with a report by the school principals on the school year to date, the same presentation that the principals reviewed earlier this evening. I'd like to thank Dr. Nigel, Ms. Garofalo, and Ms. Phelan for their informative presentation and for taking the time to answer our questions during our meeting last week. So then we moved on to discussing changes to this year's calendar. Just as a reminder, last month we moved the half professional day from Friday, June 18th to Monday, June 21st. And after considering the preferences of our faculty and other factors related to the calendar, the administration recommended that this half professional day be moved to the afternoon of Friday, May 7th. We also reviewed the proposed 2021-2022 calendar, including the suggested start date of Wednesday, September 8th, the day after Rosh Hashanah, which is Tuesday, September 7th. The committee agreed that the calendar recommended by the administration was appropriate for next year. Sorry. Let's see. We then approved the virtual professional development request submitted to our committee for our review. During our discussion, we reaffirmed that approval of virtual professional development requests by both the committee and the board should always precede the date of the professional development opportunity. Dr. Edgerton then joined the meeting to discuss the most urgent textbook-related needs in the district. She recommended that the district adopt new textbooks for Algebra 1 at both the middle school and the high school, pre-calculus and calculus. The textbooks currently used in these courses are outdated, lack important content and online material, and are no longer supported by the publisher. The committee agreed that new textbooks for these courses were needed. Then we discussed using Title IV funds to contract with Alicia DiLorenzo of Living Yes to provide virtual professional development services for our district to support this Safe and Healthy Students Initiative. Proposed services include a professional development training series, a half-day leadership retreat, and a presentation to the board and interested parents and members of the community. The proposed training program will be virtual and involve guided learning experiences that give participants the tools to practice and apply key content. Potential topics of the training include social and emotional learning, mindfulness, wellness, trauma, equity, and implicit bias. We then ended the meeting by briefly reviewing the district's dual enrollment policies, a topic that will be considered in more detail at next month's meeting. So I'd like to move items 1 through 5 on the agenda and 6 on the addendum. Do I have a second?
A second.
Any discussion? Any questions? No. Roll call?
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mr. Rosen,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
and Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Nicole. Kathy, personnel, please.
Great. Thanks, Heather. So the Personnel Committee met on February 18th at 3 o'clock for about 1 hour. Board members in attendance were Mrs. Lees, Mr. Rosen, Mrs. Santoro, and Ms. Virtue. Our administrators in attendance were Mrs. Butler, Mrs. DeMarco, and Dr. Dempsey. We were also joined by Ms. Coughlin, who is an administration intern. First, I'm really pleased to report that a candidate for the IT manager has been identified as indicated on the addendum, and we're really looking forward to having this position filled. Secondly, just as an FYI to everyone, the confidential secretary position still remains open at this point in time. In addition to these two matters, other topics related to personnel, including items on the agenda and addendum, were reviewed and discussed. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to move action items number 1 through 9 on the agenda and numbers 10 and 11 on the addendum. Can I please ask for a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion or any questions? All right, seeing none, roll call, please, Ginny.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mr. Rosen,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Yes.
and Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Jamie, policy.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, the policy meeting met on February 18th at 4 p.m. for I would say less than 20 minutes. We had a very brief agenda and a really short meeting. We discussed policies and regulations that were up for first and/or second readings this month. And we had really a list of all mandated items, which don't leave a lot of room for interpretation or discussion. So with that, I would like to move items 1 and 2 on the agenda. And is there any discussion? Can I have a second?
A
Second.
Thank you, Pat. Okay. If there's no discussion, we
Okay,
can have a roll call.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mr. Rosen,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Rye,
Sorry. Yes.
Mrs. Santoro.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Sam, community relations.
Okay, thank you. Community Relations met on Tuesday, February 16th at 9 a.m. for an hour. All committee members were in attendance, and Dr. Dempsey and Mrs. Butler were also in attendance, in addition to Ms. Coughlin, the administrative intern who had been attending our committee meetings. We discussed a number of things. The first one was a continuation of the conversation we had regarding what information is most critically necessary to be included on the BOE webpage as soon as possible, and that information, when realistic, would be compiled into a hard copy format to be distributed at meetings and packets, at public events, in mail home packets, public events, and things of that nature. We were able to identify a number of items that were appropriate for the first iteration of this effort, and we'll continue building upon that. And it was also noted that this information be accessible with as few clicks as possible, making it as easy to find for people as possible. And those things include our district mission statement, our board goals, our district goals, what our board structure is, being a regional board and what that means, what being a board of a committee structure means, definitions and explanations, and who chairs and sits on each committee. A very useful graphic organizer entitled 13 Things That Board Members Wish You Knew About Them would be linked there, and then an explanation of the chain of command and a link to the district policy 9130. After that, we discussed feedback from parents regarding the desire for spring sports at BMS and when that decision approval would take place. And as Ms. Garofalo highlighted in her presentation, we fully expect that regular spring offerings will be available to BMS students at this time. Mr. Hoppy is working on all things spring sports related, and we are awaiting his recommendations. We were likewise updated by Dr. Dempsey on the status of the BMS Open Gym program for the winter. And as we approve this evening, we are grateful to have 2 staff members who will be running that program and creating an additional enrichment opportunity for the students. Dr. Dempsey also shared that Mr. Hoppy had recommended BHS sports head coaches be approved this month in order to allow students to begin preparing for the season virtually. And that motion has passed this evening, and that work will begin as outlined. Also related to sports and extracurriculars was a brief discussion surrounding the current inability to implement delayed openings when there is inclement weather because of our bridge school day schedule. If weather were to force us to pivot to an all virtual day, but the conditions would otherwise allow us to follow a delayed opening schedule, it would be appropriate to move forward with afternoon school activities. The converse also being true, where if weather were to otherwise force a early closure, we would need to reevaluate the ability to offer after school activities. The decisions are always being made with the safety of the students and staff being the primary focus, and decisions do have to be made in an appropriately timely manner and be based on the information available and circumstances at the time of that decision. And then we discussed community and parent issues and concerns, and we discussed concerns regarding due dates and times for assignment submissions. Concerns generally spoke to wanting to understand the rationale for having work completed by midnight versus 4 p.m. versus 9 p.m., et cetera. There were questions as to the benefits to the variable times, as it sometimes causes confusion and stress for students. So administration is going to investigate this and will be further discussed in next month's committee meetings. Dr. Dempsey updated on the district's approach and plan to accommodate Governor Murphy's announcement on allowing spectators at indoor sporting events. Many of our parents have already been able to take advantage of this update. This decision was made in consultation with our district doctor and the Board of Health and Mr. Hoppy. And they came up with the following parameters for attendance: a maximum of 2 parents, guardians per athlete, a logbook to track those in attendance, health screening and temperature checks, assigned seatings for spectators with social distancing and mask wearing compliance. And additionally, all events are being streamed currently. So the committee agreed that this was a reasonable way to proceed. And I think that concludes what I have to offer. There's nothing to be moved by community relations.
Any discussion on anything Sam reported out on? Okay, so next we have supplementary matters. Does anyone on the board have anything for supplementary matters this evening?
I just have a question about the surgery that the kids are going to see, the live surgery. Do we know what kind of surgery that is? Does anybody?
I do not. Colleen, do you know?
I don't know specifically the actual surgery that they're going to see that day, but I can certainly get you more information about it.
I'm just curious how involved it is. It's really interesting.
Yep.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll move on to public comments. At this point, the board will hear comments on any topic. Please remember to limit your comments to 3 minutes. I do see we have some comments in the chat that came in during the course of committee reports. I think it started with Maren Beers. If you're still here and wanted to make your comment.
And if Ms. Mears is not here, I did see her question, and quite frankly, I would have to talk to Scott to have the specifics on that, but I can definitely relay that and make sure that she has an answer soon. I know all of those things are currently being discussed and plans being created.
Okay, great, thank you. The next comment is from Kathy. No last name.
You're still on.
Oh, Kathy, it looks like you're.
Hi, yeah, sorry. I missed the public comments before putting my kids to bed. You can read my comment there, but I just wanted to say, I appreciate that you guys have worked so hard to get them to go 5 days. I have a second grader, kindergartner, and a 2-year-old, and it's been insane to say the least. So I appreciate that. But, if they can even look to extend the day further, especially for elementary, or extend the year or do something, I'd really appreciate it. My kindergartner's had a lot of setbacks. He was like top in his class, if you will, in preschool, and he's, not connecting the dots. It's just hard for them to sit all day, especially the boys. So, if they can consider that, lunch and recess outside, whatever they need to do, I would appreciate it. And I know a lot of others that I speak with would appreciate that as well.
We are definitely looking at continuing all that we've offered in as many ways as we can. So we certainly hear you.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Kathy. We appreciate your comments.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it just, I felt like, they're already kind of there. So if they could, they're having snack outside, if they could do the lunch outside or recess, even if they could run in a field, if the playground's not available, they're there already. So, and they could be spaced out outside. So just, just thinking like, what's the difference? I know there's logistics with other schools and the buses and everything, but I appreciate if you could really consider that,
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Lauren DeMar.
Hi, everyone. I guess I'll turn on my video. No, I'm talking. Sorry. Hi. So I am going to read just from a little blurb just because I want to be concise and explain what I'm here to talk about. So I am a volunteer at Preschool Advantage, which is a local nonprofit that partners with Morris and Somerset County preschools. We are partnered with 28 preschools in those counties. We are with Treehouse, Sunshine, St. John on the Mountain, Far Hills Country Day. Some of these students that we place will go to kindergarten in Somerset Hills. We help so this is who we help. This is what I'm reading because I'll forget this. Federal Head Start is available for the neediest in our communities, but there's a huge group of people who fall between the poverty level and what you actually need to earn to sustain a family in this expensive areas that we live. So the 2020 federal poverty level is $26,200. But the United Way estimates that the annual survival budget in Somerset County for a family of 4 is $83,800. That would be with 2 parents and 2 school-age children. So similar to kind of what Bob was talking about a little while ago. So according to the United Way study done in 2018, 22% or almost 600 Bernardsville households fall below the budget needed to meet basic household needs. The average income for Preschool Advantage families last year was $48,000. So why do we need your help? The reason why is we plan to fund 100 kids a year, but we need help in spreading the word about the program. That seems to be the hardest part of all this, is getting the families that we would like to apply. So even in a district that has an integrated preschool, there's still not enough space for all those families, still not enough to accommodate. So when we have strong support from the school district, we usually get even more applicants. So that is, we've actually even doubled the amount of students with the support. So we have started accepting applications January 1st with priority funding for applications submitted by March 1st. We just ask really simply that, we kind of just market this program. We've been at the train station, we've done little fundraisers and just kind of spreading the word. I think a lot of people think that it is one preschool when we say Preschool Advantage, and it's actually 28 partner preschools that the parents can choose from when they fill out their application. The reason why we do what we do is that children of families who have less financial stability are behind their peers by age 3 and fall farther and farther behind by the time they enter kindergarten. So this isn't just for the family that needs the help. It's for everyone in that incoming kindergarten class. It's for the teacher, it's for the other students. So children who attend preschool start kindergarten ready to learn, which helps all of the children in the kindergarten classroom. It also helps the teachers and ultimately our entire school community. So I know that this is kind of off the rails as far as reopening and COVID, but I think now than ever, these types of families need our help. And, we have so many in our community that we just need to get it out there and advertise it. So
Thank you, Ms. DeMar. I know you and I have talked about this in the past. If you can share with me electronically any links that you have to the application itself, we will certainly do all we can. We can put it in our Community Friday folder. I think physically, people are not coming into our buildings as much as they did historically. So we'll just have to kind of rethink some avenues, but we will definitely do all we can to get that message out.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Ms. DeMar. Sarah Falzerano.
Hi, everyone. First, I want to thank, well, first of all, I'm sorry, I've speak enough. You already know who I am, resident of PPAC, teacher at Bedwell, coach at the high school, Shea representative. First, I want to thank the 3 building administrators for that presentation. I know the teachers have already been chatting about it, and we're so in agreement and so appreciative of everything they've said and all their support this year. We thank them and their understanding of all of their staff of relearning how to do our jobs in a matter of weeks, and upon months. So thank you to the building admin. The real reason I'm speaking is a plea to the Board of Ed, a plea to the public. As teachers, we know that there are a lot of puzzle pieces that make up a student. Their interests, their extracurricular activities, their home life, their food, even standardized test scores, which, whether we agree or not, have a bigger impact than just a number that is given to a student on a particular day at a particular time for a particular test. These scores stretch out to our community, as we know, with property values that some people have shared with us. So we want to continue as teachers to have students have educational success. And even though we can't wait to be in person and back to normal, we know that our lower learners right now especially need teachers' help more than ever. While it's hard for us to do this, it hurts us even more to see that our building level administrators have no better option right now than to pull the teachers that provide this support to these students to be substitutes when other teachers are forced to quarantine themselves or take a day off to take care of a family member or child, have a doctor's appointment, attend a Board of Ed approved conference. These kids need this explicit tailored instruction, and it's not only to increase that inevitable test score, but to help their social, emotional, behavioral, and educational well-being. We know some of the best practices of education include this direct, explicit instruction that these kids are supposed to be receiving from these people that are being pulled, and these kids aren't now receiving this. That kind of instruction is hard to come by these days with the social distancing in our classroom. Speaking of unrelated, but kind of related, thank you to Dr. Dempsey, Board of Education, our building level admin who continue these amazing afternoons of small group instruction, of social emotional learning. We have the chance as teachers to meet one-on-one with these kids with some really great differentiation that we just can't do in a social distance whole group setting. All 3 principals already touched on the importance of this. And, you know, being in the classroom is really important, and the face-to-face interactions are really important. But we can't have our differentiated instruction and our social emotional learning the same way we can in the afternoons with that small group. It is so advantageous for these students. They're so much more engaged, and it's so fun to get to know these kids in such a different way. Anyway, back to my point, students need the related arts as well. Not all kids are math lit academic kids, and in this climate, PE, art, music, enrichment, Spanish, library, they're all crucial. Building administration is forced to call on these teachers as well to cover classes and cancel related arts times. Sometimes this is the best part of a kid's day. And we know, sad to say, so we know how important these arts are to overall well-being and therefore increasing their educational growth. And by the way, we also thank building administrators for taking time away from their jobs to cover classes as well. I don't want to be remiss in not mentioning that. Outside of Bedwell, and of course I speak of Bedwell because I teach there. Outside of Bedwell, I do know with so many teachers being quarantined, many teachers are also being told to give up their prep period to cover other classes for other teachers, which they happily do because one hand washes another, right? So I could go down the rabbit hole about now how those teachers don't have their prep time to plan, to email, to copy, to prep, or even use the bathroom, but you get the point. My point is simple here. All of this can be avoided. It absolutely can. I know there's people that say, well, we're doing our best. Yeah, we are doing our best, but we can do better. Our children deserve better. It is a plea to my community that I've been a part of, and I've lived in for 34 years, and I've been a part of for 40 years. We are a community of amazing people. My plea to you is to help. I see amazing contributions on social media. I beg you to inquire with our Alcott administration about the requirements to become a sub and helping us out. Please help out your school district. Please. It only helps you in return. It will only help you in return. So, Board of Ed Alcott administration, thank you for pushing substitutes. I know Sarah Westfall more eloquently spoke last month about this. We saw your Friday folder announcements and your job ads. Believe me, it hasn't gone unnoticed, and we appreciate it. My plea is we desperately need help. Our kids need your help right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Falzarano. Okay, Sarah Westfall.
Hi, the other Sarah at Bedwell, first grade teacher. And I just want to thank the other Sarah for speaking. And I know last month that I asked those in the community with flexible schedules to consider substituting. As we all know, it does take a village to support our students. So with that in mind, I just want to take the time to publicly thank those who are in our, sorry, I'm losing my voice, in our Somerset Hills district, who, you know, our village, our community, who are currently making this in learning process possible. So I just want to give a huge shout out to my administrators. Miss Phelan has come down to my classroom, which is on the first floor, the first grade. She comes down to offer her support with rearranging the furniture and measuring the distance between the desks and just making sure we were fully prepared for combining our cohorts this week. And like she spoke earlier, you really can feel the energy has shifted this week, and just, you know, the students' appreciation, and it's you know, that is amazing. So I just want to thank Ms. Phelan, and as well as Mrs. Friedman. She's been working tremendously hard at Bedwell to manage the substitute coverage day in and day out, and like Sarah Falzarano was, you know, explaining that she's ensuring that teachers are receiving their breaks during the day, which I'm sure means she sacrifices her own breaks so that we can get ours. So I really appreciate you, Mrs. Friedman. And she was actually in my classroom yesterday morning as I arrived at school. Mrs. Friedman was already in my classroom with a new substitute, offering her assistance and getting her set up for the day as I attended a Teachers College workshop. So I applaud our administrators and all that they do to make this possible. As you know, I know it's been mentioned tonight, but I don't think it can be reiterated quite enough. But I also want to thank the substitutes and the paraprofessionals who we rely on at Bedwell. Sarah said I said it eloquently. I think she said it more eloquently than me, that the dedication and the willingness of our community to serve during challenging times, it's essential. And I'm not a public speaker like this. I don't love doing this, but the reason I'm here last month and this month is for the sake of the kids and what's best for our students, because we're nothing without our substitutes. And I just want them to be, I just want to recognize our substitutes for being so flexible and willing to adapt to technology. I mean, Ms. Phelan and Mr. Nigel and Mrs. Garofalo were talking about how we as teachers are, pivoting and doing all this, but I think substitutes in a regular school year are learning a new class, like, they just are figuring it out. And so, I was speaking to a substitute earlier today and thanking him, and he was saying to me that he specifically chooses to work at Somerset Hills. He's been in other districts, in the surrounding areas, and he said he loves it here. And I just hope that we can find more substitutes like him who see the fulfillment and joy that our students bring in our special community. And so to the board, I just want to say thank you for the professional development opportunities provided. I'm finishing up my reading specialist certification. It's been a long road, and especially during COVID times, it's like, don't recommend that to anyone. However, that aside, I just want to thank the board for that opportunity. And the workshop I attended with the Teachers College yesterday, made possible by Mrs. Friedman and Ms. Phelan and Mrs. Fisher and just the board. It was all about harnessing the power of multilingual learners and just the power that they can have in the classroom. And this is a great passion of mine, and it's relevant to all of us as teachers. And I look forward to sharing that with my colleagues. But the substitute who was in for me, she had never worked at Bedwell before. It was her first day on the job. And I just so appreciate, there's a learning curve that comes with hybrid teaching. I feel like I'm still figuring it out as I go. And she just rolled with the punches. So I thank you. And I can't reiterate enough what Sarah said before about, if you have the time in your schedule, I understand, like, people are spread thin, but those who can, like, please join us. And as for my para, Mr. Fred, who I told him I would be giving him a shout out because he's here tonight. I can't thank him enough. There's a reason he is considered and recognized as the paraprofessional of the year. He gave me such peace of mind knowing there was another adult to help facilitate yesterday with the substitute. And I can't thank him and all the paraprofessionals enough for their support, because it's all hands on deck. And I'm so lucky to have another adult in our classroom to manage the students. I cannot fathom like how I would do this year without him with all those first graders. I just wish every teacher had a Mr. Fred, but I know that would be a miracle. So just to kind of wrap it up, I'm going to work on being more concise, but I want to thank you, Mrs. Butler, for joining my class last week, and just in your endeavors to promote self-care. My future uncle-in-law, if we ever get married eventually, my fiance's uncle has a PhD in meditation in Irish classroom. So he joined my class from Ireland on Zoom just to discuss the practical benefits of meditation and mindfulness. And Mrs. Butler, you took the time out of your very busy day to join us. I'm so appreciative, and I hope we can continue to find ways to prioritize mindfulness as a district, and for just everyone to take care of themselves and take care of all of ourselves during these stressful times. And Dr. Dempsey, thank you very much for everything you do, and to the entire board, every single one of you, just all the decision making you do. I can't even comprehend how you are working around the clock, and those Sunday night phone calls you get. So just thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Westfall. We appreciate your comments. Okay, next in the chat, we just have a comment to the board from Sama Habibi. Do you want to read your comment, or would you like me to just read it for you?
Oh, it's me. Hi. No, I just wanted to thank Lauren DeMar for her work with Preschool Advantage. And thank you, Gretchen, for saying that, but I just wish there's a way that we can contact existing families, because I know that there's some that have siblings that are, preschool age. And it's such a benefit for everyone if kids actually attend preschool and have that experience before they come into kindergarten. It's, kindergarten's no longer the kindergarten of the past. It's, I don't know. It's like first, second grade now with what they're required to do. So having that that preschool background and being able to just, play with friends and sit with them and listen to a story. These are all like such important skills that these kindergartners need to have. So if there's a way that we can reach out to families, maybe not via Friday folders, different ways that we can reach out to them that really gets to them, that would be so appreciated, because in the end, like Lauren said, it helps everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, Sama. Okay, Robert Cannon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's actually Jill Cannon, but I'm on my husband's computer. So I just wanted to give a 30-second plug for the Tricky Tray. We are beyond excited that this is going to happen for the seniors, and it is scheduled for March 19th. So now that we have Board of Ed approval, the mailer will go out tomorrow, as well as in the Friday folder. So what I'm asking, we have very limited spots because it's all outdoor, is if you're interested in going, or if you know anybody interested in going, if you want to supply a basket for the night, anything you want to do to support the seniors would be awesome. The website, the email for the event is driveintrickytray@gmail.com. So that's how we're taking all the reservations for the night. So there's 166 spots in the parking lot. The baskets will be going on the track, on tables, all the way around the track. We are absolutely going with the guidelines of the Somerset Hills, the school, the state, everything. So we're super excited, but please spread the word. It's the biggest fundraising event for the seniors. And I hope I see all 93 of you there. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. I do love a Tricky Tray. I will say that. So I'm very excited.
I hope you're there.
Yes. Okay. So Mr. Cohen suggested to ask Colin Hickey to publicize to Sarah's presentation, Seeking Subs. He has a large community audience and it could help in getting the word out. And then he thanked Sarah Westfall for her kind comments. We have a question here from Mr. Stanek. Are we going to have actual fire or emergency drills again? And
the reason for my question, if you want me to put my video on, that's up to you. But anyway,
okay.
the reason for my question is that I know there were two phases. Phase one was the actual going through the fire drill itself, or the emergency drill with everybody like you would normally do in a normal school year, air quotes. And then phase two, we do the ones where we just kind of talk about it with the students. I don't know if it's changed, but there are, now that we're back to 5 days a week, and we have some students that hadn't been in school yet to participate in the phase one. And from my understanding of what I read, unless that has changed, so please let me know if that's changed, that they still need to go through the phase one aspect of it. And I don't know if we're keeping track of that. And I don't know if that's something that we do on a case by case or a class by class basis. Just say, for example, we have a student in our class that's coming that hasn't been participated in a fire drill. Can our class just do the walkthrough outside and come back in just so they get that experience? And just wanted to know if anything's changed.
Heather, I can respond to that. We follow the state's guidance for mandated drills, and they are a school by school mandate. So obviously, if in a more typical year, a student was absent on a particular day, he or she might not be there for every single drill. We are following that guidance, continuing, and certainly I encourage Mr. Stanek to follow up with his principal if he has specific concerns.
Okay. Thanks very much. And thank you all for all your all your hard work. I know it's been a tough year for everybody, but it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Stanek, for your comment. Then we have Mr. Marr thanking Sama and Stephanie Lesnick.
Hello, everybody. I'm not going to turn my camera on because I don't want to frighten anybody with the way I look. But I just want to thank the board and the administration for all of your support towards the seniors, towards project graduation. You guys know everything that we've been trying to get done, and due to COVID restrictions and guidelines, we haven't been able to have as much as we would have liked. With the approval of the tricky tray, it's just kind of pushing us forward, and the seniors appreciate everything. And
Stephanie, your sound changed and you were loud in the beginning, but now I can't hear you. I don't know if others can. Did you do something different?
Stephanie, we can't hear you at all now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I just had a quick comment. The children are, and I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
But
I'm sorry to interrupt, but could you please state your name and address?
Sure. My name is Mark Smith, 51 Main Street in Peapack. I wanted to just ask some questions about the fact that the children are now going back to school full time, but they're not having lunch, or is it? I'm not clear on it. And if that's the case, what are the reasons for that?
The children are not back in school for a full day currently. They are operating on a half-day schedule in the building, and then there is instructional support that is conducted virtually after they get home.
And is that for safety reasons? Is that the reason that the schedule is like that?
Yes, for the pandemic, for COVID protocol.
I mean, so half the school, they're in school half the day. I mean, if they've gone through the effort of going there, I don't understand really, can you explain a little bit more about how
There
it's
are
safer for them to
safety, there are safety protocols around eating in mass groups that we have not been able to kind of come to a resolution about how to handle, which will certainly be easier when the weather is warmer. So that is not to say that we are ruling that out, but we have not been able to dip our toe in that yet.
Do we know what the Catholic schools are doing? Because I had heard that they are, more or less full time, especially I think St. Elizabeth's down the street.
Mr. Smith, we operate very differently than private schools. We are governed by the state of New Jersey. So how they are handling the pandemic, it can be completely different than how we are. And I am sorry, this is not supposed to be a question and answer session. So we certainly appreciate any comments that you have, but at this point, I would just ask that you make your comments, and then we can move on to the next person who'd like to comment. Thank you.
Sure, I guess I'll just leave this. What I'm most concerned about is that the children are not really getting the full educational experience as they should. And the way I currently look at it, Bedwell's ranked by great schools a 5 out of 10. But when I look at a school in Basking Ridge, like I guess the William Annan School, at the middle school, I guess they have an elementary, Cedar Hill School, it's a 10 of 10. So I'm just concerned that the children at Bedwell are going to fall further behind, especially with remote learning, really just, not really making up for that full educational experience. And if we're already at a 5 of a 10, I could get great concern where we're going to be, maybe towards the end of this year, moving into 2022. I would really hate to see the ranking on a website like Great Schools fall even below what is really just an average rating of 5 of 10. Has the school considered extra steps to bring the kids back up to speed to make up for the lost educational experience that they've been dealing with during the COVID rule changes during the pandemic?
So, Mr. Smith, we certainly appreciate your comments and your feedback, excuse me. And I would just at this point, point you, I think a good answer to your question would be in our last meeting where our school administrators gave a presentation during the superintendent's report that would help answer some of your questions with regards to academics. So we certainly appreciate your feedback this evening. Thank you very much.
So there is a plan in place to try and catch up and I guess improve the school's report card.
We are always considering how to ensure that all students maximize their learning.
Yeah, I mean, just the way we look at it, grade schools is like the public report card for schools, and right now Bedwell's, just average, and I think we could do better. And I would just hope the school.
I think we've heard your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie, I'm sorry, we lost you. Stephanie, did you want to comment?
She wrote something in the chat.
Okay. Oh, there you are. Yes, Stephanie, we're still having a hard time reading you. So I can read what you wrote in the chat, which says, I'm sorry, I just wanted to thank the board and the administration for all your support of the seniors and project graduation. As you know, so many of our traditional events have had to be canceled and the seniors are missing so much of a traditional year. So thank you for your continued support of this amazing class. Christine Zamara commented that great schools is not the best measure of schools. And Sama Habibi has commented, it has been discussed that great schools is 3 years behind and not an accurate assessment of schools. Would anybody else like to make a comment at this time? Okay, seeing as no, I think we can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Bob?
I'll make my motion. I got my vaccine, so everybody knows a couple hours ago, and my arm feels good. I'm not sick, so I go back in 3 weeks. So
great. We're thrilled to hear that, Bob.
all right, so I make a motion to adjourn. It's been a great meeting. Thank you.
I'll second you, and congratulations, Bob.
Thank you.
Right, thank you everyone for coming. We appreciate it. Good night.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.